Of all the world to be, in my heart where'er I wander, memories enshrine and be all my hopes and aspirations, all my longings, woes aside, everlasting bonds surround years roll.
to serve my country. Guyana, beautiful, happy and free. Guyana, let's cooperate with our government to help develop Guyana the free. Together, my comrades, we will build our new Guyana, a country where all are equal opportunity. So let us begin now to show loyalty to Guyana by showing love and respect for all Guyanese. My brothers, my sisters, we will live and die here together. Our motto, one people, one nation, one destiny. For harmonious living, cooperation will be forever. In work and play as we live as proud Guyanese. Guyana, I want to serve my country. Guyana, beautiful, happy and free. Guyana, let's cooperate Bella, Guyana the free. Well, it's time we said all the rich lands in the interior. Our natural resources are there in great quantity, and we will do farming and establish towns by the border. We'll drove our food so we could fill our dire needs.
My greatest desire is to serve my country, Guyana, and sincerely help my Guyana to move along. Our government asks us that we study hard and we learn the things that will help Guyana to become strong. Guyana, I want to serve my country. Guyana, beautiful, happy and free. Guyana, let's cooperate with our government to help develop Guyana the free, to help develop Guyana the free.
Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now I know what you can I be money. Money, never money, money, never money, money. You can keep, you can even money. When you been knocked for a bum, in a bill tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, in a bill tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now know what you can even money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker, neighbor, neighbor, joker, neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This is all the money that me walk for. I said money, neighbor, money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. Now I know what you can even money. Oh, Joseph.
night, and welcome to all legal-minded people. I love that. West Indian people, we have a way with words. We have added words to the global dictionary. Cheryl says good night, and to all viewers, fellow Guyanese. Here's Dave. Welcome in all. Well, share the link, and we're going to be talking tonight. We're going to be talking about a range of issues. As you know, today was budget day, where the government gets to present its budget for the coming fiscal year. We've already gotten a sneak peek by the government into what they intend to propose that we spend for the next year, and how they intend to pay for that spending. So we're going to be talking about that, and we're going to be talking about some other pertinent issues tonight. I just want to welcome and down everybody, my friend Alison from Toronto via Queenstown on the Essequibo. Good night, Alison. Deborah, good night. Deborah Cox, good night. And welcome to Politics 101. Rhonda, of course, is with us from that wonderful village of Den Amstel, one of, if not the premier village on the west side, as we say now, to incorporate West Bank and West Coast, and of course the East Bank of the Essequibo, I think starting at Burusiri, goes back, they call it East Bank of Essequibo, but all of that is West Demerara, in the same way on the East Coast going up until Myconi, and then from Myconi go back, we talk about West Bobis. But I've never met a Myconian who doesn't see himself as a Borbetian or herself as a Borbetian. So there you have Myconi on the border. And there are lots of family ties between Myconi people and people from Belladrum and the western part of West Bobis. So these geographical compartmentalization sometimes do not give us a full picture of how people see themselves. We have geographical definitions, and then we have cultural definitions of that geography. So if we think about a place like Myconi hardly would associate itself with East Coast, and more associate themselves with West Bobis. Of course, I think the border between East Coast and West Bobis or Region 5 is the Barry Creek. I may be wrong, but I think that's the geographical. But geography is not always a best indication of where people live. There's a cultural definition. Our Caribbean, Guyana, for example, is geographically, physically, Guyana is physically in South America, but really culturally and politically, it is part of the Caribbean. So when we talk about cultural geography or political geography, then Guyana is Caribbean, because culturally and politically, Guyana identifies with the Caribbean. So we have the physical definition of geography, but it doesn't always tell us exactly where people live and how they see themselves. Have Agricola, for example, that is part of Georgetown. Well, we all know that Agricola is East Bank. And in the old days, Kitty used to be part of the East Coast. In the 1947 election, I think, up until 1964 when we won, and then in 64 we moved away from the Kitty to Buxton. In those days, Kitty was considered East Coast. So although today places like Kitty and Agricola are considered part of Georgetown, really, I don't think an Agricola man would say I'm a tongue man, you know. And even people in Kitty would at least say, look, I'm a tongue woman or I'm a tongue man. So people define themselves in so many ways. The village that I come from really is Buxton Friendship. And then you have Southern Annandale, which is populated mostly by African Guyanese who came off the Lusignan estate and settled in that part of Annandale. And then to the east, you have like Vigilance. In the old days, we call it brush pasture. And the people who live there are really not, in a physical way, part of Buxton, and so Southern Annandale. But don't tell a friendship person you're a Friendshiponian. That friendship person says I'm a Buxtonian. And even people from Southern Annandale, the black people who live there, consider themselves more as Buxtonians than Annandale people, right? In fact, they distinguish themselves from the rest of Annandale by saying they come out of Congo pasture, meaning that part of Annandale, because Annandale is a predominantly Indian Guyanese village, but that southern part where blacks predominate is considered part of the old Buxton enclave. And so do the people of Vigilance. And now you have the old time squatting area, they now call them the schemes. And the people live in those schemes, which are outside of the boundaries of Buxton. But they're mostly Buxtonians, and so they consider themselves Buxton. Just chatting some geography there, and culture, and identity, because identity is important, you know. On the north side of Buxton, used to be mostly Indian Guyanese who live what we call Buxton Front, going up to the seawall. And they lived there for a very long time, and some of them still live there. During the disturbances of the 1960s, a lot of the Indian Guyanese moved out, or some would say were forced out of Buxton, and they went over to Annandale. They went to places like what they call Sand Reef and Corbin Park. But there used to be Buxtonians at the front side there. And to this day, you meet Buxtonians like that, and they refer to themselves as Buxton Coolies. Well, me a Buxton Coolie man, or me a Bux man, ensuring that Buxton is linked to their identity. You see? People think that places like Buxton were predominantly African, but wasn't purely African. Indians lived there. I would say a good 5 to 10% of the population was Indian Guyanese. I remember going to school, and in any of our classes, you had about a quarter of the students were Indians from Strathspey, Indians from Buxton Front, and some Indians from Annandale. And so Buxton, like many of the villages, the black villages, was once a multiracial village. But during the disturbances, people were forced to, exchange homes. Indians exchange homes with Africans and so on. I see my brother from Toronto. The Toronto people are on tonight. My brother Brian Moses. In Buxton, we call him Lion. Good night, my brother, and it's good to see you on. As I said, Toronto in the house, the man Lion, look where, when you're growing up and so on, you had some bright boys in the village, and Brian was one of the young geniuses. He was considered genius when it came to mathematics of our generation, and we would have arguments to this day. When I was home recently, of who was the brightest people of the generation, and we always said that Brian Moses, and we had we got another villager, John Cromwell. You know, they were considered the bright boys of our generation. Brian was the maths man, and John was an all-round of sorts, but in English and social studies and history, and he could talk. He was a talk man, you know. And the consensus was that Brian Moses and John Cromwell of my generation were the brightest boys in the village. Brian is on here tonight, and I get to be the bright boy tonight because I get to talk in the audience. But when we were growing up in the village, you have to take second to them boys. You know? Wonderful education. Education in our communities, in our villages, was really a big thing. You know, people would argue about who was the best runner, the best athlete, the best cricketer, the best footballer. And nowadays, you don't hear people talking about who was the brightest man or the brightest girl in the village. In our time, that's what we argued about. We argued about who was the best sportsman and all the other things, but we also argued about who was the brightest person, who was the best speaker in the village, because in those days, you all remember, in every village, you used to debate. You had debates, and you learned very early how to talk and how to argue. Not to argue, you know, they had what you call ignorant argument, argument, and then you have debate argument, how to logically explain yourself. And as we get older and we look back on those days of grounding in our communities, we realize that by the time we got to university and so on, we were already rounded and grounded because of the kind of informal training that we had in the communities. I talk properly, girl dress properly. So you learn to talk properly, you learn to dress properly, you learn how to conduct yourself in the village. And we didn't realize then it was informal education. Informal education. And I can tell you, it has served me, and I'm sure it has served us well as we have moved on in life. Welcome down, everybody, to Politics 101 tonight. And I'm so happy always to see people. I seem to remember that name from, I think, cricket. It's still good night, but that name certain rings a bell. Alison Pearson said that no wonder they want to break up Region 4. Yes. You know, the way how Region 4 is, if they break it up in 4, what they would be doing is diluting the opposition vote. And I am sure that that is their objective in trying to break up Region 4. As far as I'm concerned, Guyana is not an island. Guyana is a country in South America, but because our customs are so, I'm saying we're not close to the Caribbean. We are part of the Caribbean culturally and politically. And that has to do with the way in which colonization operated, because countries in the Caribbean tend to follow the pattern of their colonizers. And so you go to a place like Haiti, and their political institutions are along the French line. They have a president and a prime minister, so they have what is called a hybrid system. Guyana developed the hybrid system in 1980. Prior to that, we had a prime minister and a governor general, and then, of course, when we became a republic, we had a prime minister, a president. The president, of course, was ceremonial. And if you're from the older generation, you know, when you say governor general, everybody would say Sir David Rose. You say president, everybody say Arthur Chung. And then from 1980, we became a hybrid system. We took the French system, which is a nation of the presidential system and the parliamentary system, prime minister system. So our system is a cross between Britain and France, where our president is both head of state and head of government, head of state and head of government fused in the same person. And then the prime minister represents the president or represents the ruling party inside of the National Assembly. Haiti has a system like that, similar to Guyana. But the rest of our English-speaking Caribbean, they have the strictly British system, where you have a prime minister and a governor general, if it's not a republic. And then if you're a republic like Dominica and Barbados recently became a republic, Trinidad and Tobago, you have a prime minister and you have a prime minister and a president. But the president in Barbados, the president in Dominica, the president in Trinidad, they're ceremonial presidents. They're heads of state. Whereas our president is head of state and head of government. And so I want to welcome everybody down to Politics 101. And Brian is saying there, Buxton Front was an Indian enclave, which is true. You know, you go up there, that's where our ball ground was, and you go up there to play cricket. And just next door to the ball ground was an Indian family, the Barons, them Baron people. Some of them I know are in Maryland now, and so on. And the thing is, it was difficult to refer to them as East Indians, and that's part of the sociology of villages, because you didn't consider the Barons and the Gopis and all those people from Buxton Front, Indian Guyanese. They didn't see themselves as Indian Guyanese. They saw themselves as Buxtonians. So the question of ethnicity did not enter into the considerations. So the sociology in the villages are extremely important. We know that Rhonda, your village there, then Amstel, Hague, Blankenburg, and I suppose people who live in Blankenburg and Hague and Fellowship, next to Den Amstel there, they consider themselves Den Amstel people, even though there are these demarcations. You know, I suppose it was because of the way in which the estates, because these villages were formerly estates, and so the estate boundaries may have defined where was Blankenburg and where was Den Amstel, where was Fellowship, where was Hague, and so on. But so much of some geography of our country. Welcome to Politics 101. Another Buxton man here tonight, Orrin Newton. I know the man Bomba E and Brian, them were frontside people, but Mr. Newton was frontside. You know, we were saying the other day in the village that all them Newton boys, they had one system, but all them Newton boys, they had to be bright, because they lived in the same building where the Buxton Secondary School was housed. And so, my friend, we were saying the other night in Buxton, that them Newton boys should be bright because they live in the house of education. And indeed, they are very bright. some of them younger Newton boys are philosophers now in the village when one of them boys, Newton boys, they hold me down with some Rastafarian reasoning and think deep. Such is the wisdom that comes from villages, and all of us come from villages. Even when you live in Georgetown and you scratch beneath the surface, my grandmother was from some village. Your grandfather was from some village. Town is a place that people migrated to, and so on. So we're all villagers in many regards. Blessed if you, Wendy, and welcome to Politics 101. All right, so today is budget day. They read the budget, and as we said, a budget tells us how a government is going to spend your money for the next fiscal year, and how the government intends to get this money that it wants to spend. And as I always say, if the government bring in less money than it intends to spend, then it got to borrow that money in order to fill that deficit. And if you borrow money, then you're putting the country in debt. Now, because of oil, we have this natural resource fund where we put this money in there for safekeeping. We put this money in there for safekeeping. Because the view is that if you allow countries, especially countries which were poor before they get oil money, if you allow them to spend the money willy-nilly, then they are going to overspend, misspend, and do all kinds of things. And the country is going to fall in economic trouble. They call it the Dutch disease or the Dutch curse, and so on. Now, there is a part of that thinking, I think, is culturally tainted, in the sense that here are Europeans telling us in the third world that we are not good managers of money. And so therefore, we come up with this sovereign wealth fund in which we put away money ostensibly for a rainy day. That we should not spend the money on this generation. We should leave money to be spent on future generation. That is the assumption of the sovereign wealth fund and this mechanism to hide away the money. Now, I have fundamental differences with the assumptions of these sovereign wealth funds. First of all, the assumption that Black people and brown people cannot spend money wisely. I disagree with that fundamentally. I think it comes from a place of deep global racism that we, Black and brown, post-plantation people, we are not fully formed people who can exist in a state of freedom. And so therefore, we have to be helped along. And one of the ways they help us along is to teach us how to spend our money. And the way they do that is that they hold on to our money and they give us it when it becomes necessary to do so. So we can spend it. I disagree with that assumption. I also disagree with the assumption of money for rainy days. We have had rainy days in Guyana dating back to the Middle Passage. From the Middle Passage to now, poverty and want have been rampant in countries like ours. And so therefore we have had rainy days for centuries. And it is my view that money that we earn today should be spent correcting the anomalies that came with centuries of rainy days. You can't have 40% unemployment and you get some money and you say, I'm saving it for rainy days. No, you're going to take that money to deal with unemployment. You can't have a home in which the roof is leaking and you get some money and say, boy, I'm going to put the money in the bank for rainy days and continue to live in a house where it's leaking. It makes sense to me that you can't do that. So we live in an economic house that is leaking and that has been leaking for centuries. It means, therefore, if we get a windfall, you want to, first of all, spend the money to correct the house that is leaking. You put aside a little bit, but you want to correct the problems now. Because if you correct yesterday's problems and you correct today's problems, then the future would be brighter. And you won't have to put away as much, you know. You go to buy a house, the realtor tell you, invest in a new house. Because if you invest in a new house, it means that you get about 15 years, 20 years before things start going bad in the house. If you invest in an older house, then you will have to spend money much quicker to start repairing that house. So it always makes sense to deal with the present. And if the present is brighter, then the future will be much brighter. The basis for this sovereign wealth fund, I think is flawed. But having said that, it is not because you can spend money today that you will spend it for the sake of spending. I'm saying our problem in Guyana, it is not the amount of money we spend, but it's what we spend it on and how we spend it. The budget today is $552.9 billion Guyana dollars. That's almost, I think, $2 billion US dollars. That's a lot of money. A lot of money to be spending in 1 year to begin with. But, as I said, it's not the amount of money. But what you are spending this money on, what you're spending this money on, that is the proof of whether you are sincere, whether you are smart enough, bright enough, and whether, in fact, you are concerned with developing your country. Now, in the first place, I think a budget is such an important issue. It's about how much you're spending people's money on them, directly or indirectly. It's about whether you are putting people in debt. Because like I said, if you spend more than you are bringing in, then you're putting the country in debt. You're putting the people of the country in debt. And because it is such an important undertaking, a budget should be prepared by everybody. All those who are all those who are affected by the budget ought to be part of the preparation of the budget. That's a definition of democracy, a definition of substantive democracy, put forward by our own Sir Arthur Lewis of St. Lucia, who argues that there is what you call formal democracy. That is, you have democratic institutions or institutions that operate democratically. You have periodic elections. He said those are what we call formal, part of what is formal democracy or democratic forms. The question is whether the presence of institutions, the presence of elections, whether those amount to equality, equity, and justice. If you have institutions and you have periodic elections, but at the end of the elections, and in spite of the institutions, there is still inequality, there is still injustice, there is still non-participation of the majority of the people in decision making. Then you have undemocratic outcomes. The question is, how can you have a democracy that has undemocratic outcomes? It means that that democracy is a flawed democracy. And I would like to submit that that's what we have in Guyana. That's what we have in Guyana. We have democratic forms which do not act democratically, and so they do not lead to democratic outcomes. And so one must find it hard to describe Guyana as a democracy. The question that we have to ask again, democracy for whom? I have not had a chance to peruse the budget, but I'm sure included in that budget is going to be a lot of resources for the business class. The business class in Guyana is small, very tiny section of our population. I'm talking about big business. I'm not talking about the little businessman and woman in the villages or in the towns. I'm talking about the big private sector, the commercial sector. Tiny. Not only is it tiny, in an ethnically divided society, it is confined for the most part to two ethnic groups. And if you are going to, in a national budget, give a disproportionate portion of our national resources to that group, you start off by discriminating. So the budget in itself becomes a tool of class discrimination and ethnic discrimination. Therefore, if you're talking about preparing a budget, then at the minimum, you want to have the government and the parliamentary opposition to sit down and to craft the budget. The parliamentary opposition would be expected to make budgetary inputs that reflect the needs of their constituency. And the governing party are expected to make inputs reflecting the needs of their constituency. and you sit down and you put that together, and you deliberate, and you come out with a budget that is reflective of the different communities. And so the preparation of the budget must be a democratic process. Something the fools like Samat will never understand. Because persons like that have surrendered their brains to a party. It is not that they don't have brains, but they've taken out their brains and taken it to Freedom House and said, control my brains. And so they will never understand the meaning of equality and equity. Because brains allow you to think, to reason, no matter your station in life. In the old days, old people would say, your brain's dying, you're rare. Today, some of our people don't put their brains there. They go and lodge their brains at the party headquarters. And so they walk around the place brainless. And they come on to these shows and they display their brainlessness for the world to see. Sanita Rampat, you ought to be so ashamed of yourself to be able to expose the giveaway of your brains to the public. And come here on a program like this and flaunt it. I am brainless. I took my brains to Freedom House. It is a sad way to live. Sad way to live. But getting back to the budget that we were talking about, the budget ought to be, we should pass a law saying that our budget should be prepared by the government and the opposition, all parliamentary parties. That's the first thing that we want to register tonight. The second thing we want to register tonight is that we are going to have a budget this year that is going to look at consolidating the PPP's pet projects. You see, when you run for office, you run for office on a manifesto. And that manifesto is usually divided into various parts. What am I going to do nationally? What am I going to do nationally? And what am I going to do for my constituents? And when you come to allocate money for the national budget, you have to be guided by the first consideration. What am I going to do for the country? What are the needs of the country, the collective needs of the country? I am arguing tonight that the biggest stumbling block to development of our people and development of our country is poverty. Poverty. In order for us to move from a developing or underdeveloped economy to a developed economy, we have to deal with the question of poverty. We have to deal with the question of poverty. Poverty is a sin. The late Shadow said poverty is hell. And poverty exists in all communities. Indian communities, African communities, Amerindian communities, the three major communities in the country. And it is what stands between an individual and his or her ability to be free. Is it what stands between a family and its ability to move from one level to another level? It is what stands between a community that is bedeviled by crime, that is bedeviled by bad roads, poor education, and the freedom. And it is what stands between a poor country, an underdeveloped country, and a developed country. Last year, the PPP's budget did not address poverty. It listed 5 principles. And poverty alleviation was not part of it. And based on what we are hearing tonight, poverty alleviation is not part of the guiding principles of the budget. Am I saying that there are no initiatives in the budget that addresses aspects of poverty? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, what is the general principle? What is the overriding vision? At the end of the fiscal year, what are we looking for? When we spend all of this money, what are you looking for? At the end of the year, the guiding principle. And I'm saying we have burdened too long on the poverty. All of us. No matter where we are today, we have experienced poverty of one form, one sort or the other. And some of us have been barely lucky to escape the clutches, either through migration or through education or through entrepreneurship. But we go back into our communities, and the vast number of our people remain where we left them. Not because they have not tried.
Researchers in Britain are calling,
but because the system has not tackled poverty in a systemic way. So if you do not tackle poverty in a systemic way, it means you are encouraging poverty in a systemic way. And so what we have is systemic poverty. Constantly building a hole to fill a hole. We are constantly trying to exist today. And so there is no overriding vision in this budget about dealing with the question of poverty. I'm saying that we ought to indict the government in Guyana today that is getting a little bit more money than it would normally get. I'm saying that we ought to indict and not dealing with the number one curse in our society. They want us to continue to exist like jagabats and trench grapples like them, except that they are jagabats and trench grapples with means. And they want to reduce us to people without means. Bob Marley says some people got everything. Some people got dreams. Some people have ways and means. And all that some people have, as he said, is dreams. Some people got everything. Some people got the ways and the means. Some people got nothing. And they would like us to remain nothing. So this is a kind of budget that is aimed at getting the rich richer and the poor poorer. Let us talk about this question of poverty. I'm going to open the phones tonight and to get your thoughts on poverty. I'm saying if we can beat poverty, we will open the doors. We'll open the doors to prosperity. If we can beat poverty. Our people have done a lot on their own. Our people have done a lot on their own. The lady who filled her tray with plantain chips and go out there, sun and rain, and sell for $1 pack. She's making enough probably to buy rice, greens, and sugar. But she goes out there every day and sell her plantain chip to survive. What about policies to help her move from plantain chip at the side of the road in a tray to a little shop that sells plantain chip and other items that can guarantee herself a living wage? In the old days, they used to talk about a small man becoming a real man. It was a noble objective. We have to put mechanisms and policies in place for the small woman to become a free woman. Because that lady is only going to be free when she has economic freedom. Economic freedom means that she has the ways and the means to survive. I'm saying that is the number one challenge of our time. Because we can trace all the ills in our society back to poverty. The poor parent who has to take that child out of school to go help her sell in the streets, robbing that child of education, robbing that child of an education which would give that child a proper job with a proper income, allowing that child to become an adult with the skills that are needed to earn a living wage and to begin to raise a family knowing that he or she can take care of that family, all roads lead back to poverty. All roads lead back to poverty. And until we are able to tackle poverty, we are going to be in some serious trouble. Well, we heard the news today that Mr. Harman has resigned as the leader of the opposition. I know that many of us in the audience, many of you in the audience, have been asking for that. And I've said over and over again that the hostility ought not to be at Mr. Harman. He did not name himself. But those of you who have been calling for a new leader of the opposition, you got your wish today. Mr. Harman has stepped aside. Yesterday, Mr. Harman resigned as General Secretary of the APNU. I understand they had a vote. It would have been the first vote ever in the APNU. You know, I have been saying on this program and other program that they never take votes in the APNU. Well, I understand yesterday they took a vote. You all give yourself a tap on the shoulder that because of our advocacy and so on, the APNU apparently took a vote yesterday for the first time. And Mr. Aubrey Norton was named as the chairman of the APNU. Today, Mr. Harman stepped aside, but we do not know who will replace him. Who will replace Mr. Harman? We don't know that yet, but we know it's the first step. So you can't beat up on Joe anymore. He has exited the stage. The ball is now in Mr. Granger's court. I've always felt that way, that this is Mr. Granger's thing. It's not Mr. Harman's thing. The question is, will Mr. Norton be elevated to the position of
when you've been a corrupt in a bill there be money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full in a bill there be money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money, neighbor. Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, now don't want you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me work for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This is all the money that me work for. I said money, neighbor. Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, and I don't want you conniving money. Oh, Joseph.
I want to serve my country. Diana, beautiful, happy and free. Diana, let's cooperate with our government to help develop Diana the free.
Together, my comrades, we will build a brand new Guyana, a country where all are equal opportunity. So let us begin now to show loyalty to Guyana by showing love and respect for all their needs.
My brothers, my sisters, we will live and die here together. On to one people, one nation, one destiny. For harmonious living, cooperation will be forever. In work and play as we live as proud Guyanese. Guyana. beautiful, happy and free. Guyana, let's cooperate with our government to help develop Guyana the free.
Well, it's time we said all the regions in the interior, our natural resources are there in great quantity. And we will do farming and establish towns by the border. We'll grow more food so we would fill all dire needs.
My greatest desire is to serve my country, Guyana, and sincerely help my Guyana to move along. Our government asks us that we study hard and we learn the things that will help Guyana to become strong. Guyana, I want to serve my country. Guyana, beautiful, happy and free. Guyana, let's cooperate with our government to help develop Guyana the free. To help develop Guyana the free.
Hey, morning, Ali, how are you? Morning, neighbor, morning. Good morning to you. Welcome to another program of BUXTONIAN Morning Time. It is now 7 hours 17 on the morning after. 7 hours 17 on the 27th of January in the year 2022. You know, the morning after is usually a bad time. Morning after brings a lot of anxieties. Young people also know that. When you go the evening, and you had a rollicking time, and then you wake next morning and you realize that, I don't know how I got home. I was that drunk that I don't know how I got home. And then you start feeling strange pains, or pains in strange places. You start to wonder your priorities. Right? That's what we're dealing with this morning. A lot of people are asking, how can a government, how can a group of people, we know that thieving and corrupt and divisive and so on, but wait, there ain't no humanity in them? Is there no humanity in them? How they could be so rough, man? What is in budget 2022 for the people? Well, based on the numbers I'm seeing, it is more important to build roads and bridges than it is to take care of the people's health and education. That's my immediate takeaway from the budget. Roads and bridges are more important than health and education. If you look at the allocated amounts, then you will see that roads and bridges will take a whopping 76.7 billion Guyana dollars out of the 552.9 billion budget. Yes, you had $552.9 billion presented as the budget for this year. Okay? That's the budget. That's the entire budget that was presented yesterday, in case you missed it. Almost $553 billion. Right? It's just $1 million or $100 million there about less. 552.9 billion. Of that, roads and bridges are being allocated $76.7 billion, almost $77 billion. Compared to education, or compared to health, let's look at health. Compared to health, $73.4 billion. Health, $73.2 billion. Right? I usually argue that a nation's health is its wealth. You would want to invest, especially in a time of pandemic, more in your health sector to ensure that your citizens are taken care of properly. Right? But roads and bridges, got almost 77 compared to health, which got 73 billion. Roads and bridges is $4 billion more than the healthcare sector. Right? Then if you look at education, you have $74 billion provided for education. Again, in a pandemic, what is the $74.4 billion going to? Construction of new schools, renovation of old schools, right? The provision of laptops and other gadgets to 425 teachers. 425 teachers. And those 425 teachers will come from the primary school and the secondary school. That is 300 from primary and 125 from secondary. In a pandemic, when most countries are addressing education from a virtual point of view, we're talking about building more schools. Yes, if you have schools built already, you have a responsibility to maintain them. No doubt. But you also have a responsibility to maintain and equip those existing schools. One would believe that since you have these schools, which are catering to the student population so far, you would equip them for the time, as the boys say, up to the time. And so you will spend more money on the gadgets and infrastructure that is necessary in this time. But we're hearing about the construction of new schools, right? And the creation of 2 or 3 smart classrooms in a pandemic. I see that that approach to education in this time as being myopic, and it reflects a set of thoughtlessness by those who are tasked with managing education in this country. Could we have given more gadgets to teachers? Yes, I think so. Could we have given gadgets to students? Yes, I think so. Could we make internet access more easily available or readily available to schools? Yes, I think so. For communities so that the students can access their online work? Yes, I think so. That would have been an example of thoughtfulness in a pandemic. Because like everybody is arguing, the pandemic is going nowhere. And since the government claims that it is so concerned about learning loss, then one would have hoped that it would have used the resources which it is now spending, $552.9 billion, to address the situation when it comes to virtual learning and learning loss. One would have hoped so, but it is not so. The people are continuing to govern as if things remain in the 1990s. Pre-pandemic, buildings. We need more school buildings, and so let us build schools. But are those buildings going to be occupied? Given the rate of spread of COVID-19 and its variants, do you foresee those buildings being occupied in the short term? Or should you have used those resources to put systems in place so that those who are in the education system currently can be guaranteed access to education and so reduce the possibility of learning loss? That is how I think the educators should have been thinking. Right? But I think it was Martin Cart who said swines don't think. And when you look at the behavior of the folks who are managing not only our education system, but the folks who are managing the country, right? They behave swinish, piggish, brutish, wild hoggish. And so you can't expect different from them. Right? Roads and bridges. More resources are allocated to that than to education or even health. Because again, if you look at what's happening in the healthcare sector, just the last 2 weeks or so, we were talking about how many members of the medical fraternity, nurses and doctors and admin staff and so on at the Georgetown Hospital were infected. And the challenges that it was posing for patient care, etc. Right? But here we are talking about allocating $73 billion for health care. How much of that is going to improving the well-being of the healthcare workers? We're talking about infrastructure again. It's an infrastructure government. The human capital has no value in their eyes. And you know why they continue to take this approach? Because the majority of the human capital in the public sector, be it health, be it education, and other government services, are the very people they want to marginalize and keep in poverty. So even if they allocate large sums, they don't allocate it to the development and the protection of the human capital. They allocate it to infrastructure. Infrastructure can work on its own. Right? Have you heard anything that says so much money is allocated for increases in wages and salaries and other emoluments for public servants? Have you heard that? I don't think I heard it. Normally when a budget is presented, one of the screaming headlines is how much public servants would benefit from that budget, because public servants make up the larger block of government employees, or employees in the country. As a matter of fact, the public service employs the majority of citizens. But not a single word said in that budget about emoluments for public servants. What does that say to you? Human capital is not important to this government, especially public service human capital. Because again, I will repeat, the majority of public servants are not the people that the government care about. Quite the contrary, they are the people they would want to see marginalized, oppressed and suppressed, and if possible, eliminated from the public service. So what's in the budget for us? What's in the budget for you, citizens? Let's continue to talk about what's in the budget for you. Large numbers, billions of dollars, multi-billion, tens of billions of dollars allocated to sectors. Right? But where is it going? Where is it going? Infrastructure. This is an infrastructural government. $76 billion to roads and bridges. $29 billion to the energy sector. $6 billion for Gaisuko. Yes. $6 billion for Gaisuko. How is it that there is that announcement for Gaisuko? And no announcement about the public service. Gaisuko gets $6 billion of Guyanese dollars. To do what? To increase production and exportation. In case you don't remember, let me remind you that Gaisuko current and Gaisuko in the future will continue to produce sugar at a cost higher than the market price for sugar when it exports it. And so we're taking $6 billion of our money to put into Gaisuko so that they can export at a subsidized price to foreigners. I hope you're following what's happening here. $6 billion perhaps could have been used to give cash transfers to citizens, direct cash transfers to citizens. But instead, that $6 billion is being put into an industry to subsidize the cost of sugar for non-nationals. How caring is your government? How considerate is your government? So let us boost up. Let us prop up a failing industry, because the majority of the people who operate in that industry look like us. Let us do it at the expense of the majority of the country. Right? So we're going to produce sugar at 17 cents US a pound or a ton, whatever, and sell it internationally for 7 cents or 8 cents. What kind of jumbo economics is that? That money could have been better spent on giving the people cash grants to help them to elevate themselves out of poverty. That money was robbed. The Guyanese citizens were robbed from that money. The utility which could have come from that money is now, to Guyanese citizens, is now going to some foreign national. Keep that in mind. What's in the budget for us? For citizens? Imagine imagine the economy is expected to grow by 47.5%. So if I interpret that right, during this year, Guyane's economy is going to be equivalent to approximately 1.5 times it is right now. Right? Approximately 1.5 times it is right now. But what do the citizens get? Imagine you're anticipating that things are going to be so nice for this year. You expected to earn 957.6 million US dollars. Almost 958 million US you expected to earn from oil this year alone. The other sectors are expected to grow. But your old age pensioners can only get $3,000 on their pension. $3,000 on their pension. Cost of living, as of now, increased by about 14%. I see the finance minister is saying 11 point something, let's say 12%. Right? But $3,000 is what your old age pensioners are getting. If your economy is expected to grow by 47%, I bet you that your cost of living is also expected to increase. It's called inflation. And so the question is, can $3,000 cushion the effects of inflation in this year, 2022, as the economy expands? Will $3,000 be able to cushion the effect for the old age pensioners? You know the answer as well as I know it. Likewise, for public assistance, they have granted them $2,000. Right? $2,000. So they have now moved from $12,000 to $14,000 a month. Who can survive? Who can survive on $12,000 a month? I mean, it's called as an assistant. An assistance, right? They're assisting. It means that you're expected to get income from somewhere else. But if you know the criteria for public assistance, then you would understand that it's near impossible for those people who are getting public assistance to get anything elsewhere. Public assistance goes to people who can't work, people who are disabled in some way, shape, or form, people who are dependent on others. And so we are having no expansion of social services, if I can call it that. For these people. And I dare argue, because Frank also said it to some extent, he said it is being found that people who have recovered from COVID-19 are now showing up with other illnesses. And so I can say to you beyond the shadow of a doubt, or we not likes to say what? Without the fear of successful contradiction. That in this pandemic, there are a lot of people, lots more who will be dependent on social services. But what do they get? What do they get? $2,000.12. In an economy that is expected to expand by about 50%. What's in the budget for you? What's in the budget? Oh, your income tax threshold has been increased by $10,000. Previously, the income tax threshold was $65,000. If you earned $65,000 or less, you didn't have to pay income tax. Now, if you earn $75,000 or less, you wouldn't have to pay income tax. Note the minimum wage, public service minimum wage is $70,000. Right? Public service minimum wage is $70,000. And so, assuming they will give you a nice fat increase as they wrap up budget debates and so on, right? Your minimum wage will move from current $70,000 to above that $75,000 threshold. I'm being generous. And so you can look forward to even the lowest paid public servant having to pay income tax. Y'all recognize that? The income tax threshold is $5,000 more than the public service minimum wage. $5,000 more. And since they did not announce any increases to public servants and so on, my assumption is that somewhere down the line they will say, well, public servants will get X amount, which is likely to take it above the threshold. And then it will be taxed. And the taxes are likely to bring you below the minimum wages. Those are just my inclinations. What's in the budget for the ordinary man? That's the question. The contractors are going to get big money, constructing roads to the value of $76.7 billion. They're going to get big money from the health sector, constructing buildings, infrastructure. Education, they're going to get big money from infrastructure again. Big money is there for those who are going to be, those who are in procurement. The IPS and so on, and perhaps the sheriffs and so on, are going to get into the cash cow. Because they are the ones who are going to get the contracts to import gadgets and so on. But what does the ordinary citizen get? The public servants, what do they get? Nothing visible so far. I like the word Laura. Good? So that's, I mean, we can't use the entire program to talk about what's in the budget. But that's a synopsis. Of course, there's a big security budget. Almost $48 billion of security. Well, here it is, Karen Cummins is correcting me. So you see, my reasoning can't be too far off. Karen is saying that currently, after the 7% increase, I didn't take that into consideration. The minimum wage is $74,900. I'm trusting Karen's computation here. Minimum wage is now $74,900. So it is $100 less than the income tax threshold. Huh? Isn't that gimmicks the short crook is playing with you people? Huh? It's not gimmicks. They install cabal playing. So they... Karen girl, give me a break. Seriously? Your income tax threshold is now $100 more than what your minimum wage is. That's how that is why I chose this way of talking about the budget. Because I want people to put it into reality. You must see the real picture. Don't worry the big numbers, the smoke screens. What? Almost 75 billion for education? But what does that mean for you? What? Income tax threshold gone up $10,000? What? But what does it mean for you? If your current minimum wage is $100 less than the income tax threshold, any increase the government gives you will take you over that threshold. So some people might as well be praying not to get an increase. Because the increase takes you over the threshold, you will pay taxes, and that might give you a lesser take home than you are currently having. Are you understanding that? So what really is in the budget for the ordinary man? 47.9 billion, almost 48 billion in security. What will they do? Build more prisons, build more police stations, buy more arms and ammunition and police gear to oppress the people. I've always argued, and I'm going to continue to make that argument, that in an oil economy, a government such as the PPP will fortify itself with military gear. It will fortify the coercive arm of the state because it will use that to keep citizens in line and to prevent protest and anti-government action. And so that $47.9 billion for the security sector is going to be used to do exactly that. It isn't going to be used to improve a lot of the servicemen and women. They will have to wait for public service increases and so on. It is going to be used to get them more modern and aggressive equipment to deal with protests and so on. You're not going to get that water cannon that came from India that behaved like a water gun. You're likely to get something more expensive and perhaps more effective. They would have learned from that mistake. And now they got oil money, so they ain't got to cut corners to buy. So look out for the announcements, if they even announce. If they even announce when they're going to be buying these things to keep citizens oppressed. But bet and sure, a large chunk of that money for the security sector is going to be used to buy hardware to keep citizens in line. It's not going to be considering that there are certain services which are needed in the security sector in terms of crime prevention and reduction of recidivism. Right? Keep that in mind. It is now 7 hours 52, almost 8 o'clock. You tune to the Buxtonian Morning Time. I'm seeing some early voice notes, but I'm not ready to go there yet.
Guyana, I want to serve my country. Guyana, beautiful, happy and free. Guyana, let's cooperate with our government to help develop Guyana the free.
Together, my comrades, we will build a brand new Guyana, a country where all are equal opportunity. So let us begin now to show loyalty to Guyana by showing love and respect for all that it needs.
My brothers, my sisters, we will live and die here together. On one to one people, one nation, one destiny. For harmonious living, cooperation will be forever. In work and play as we live as proud Guyanese.
Guyana, I want to serve my country. Guyana, beautiful, happy and free. Guyana, let's cooperate with our government to help develop Guyana the free.
Well, it's time we said all the rich lands in the interior. Our natural resources are there in great quantity. And we will do farming and establish towns by the border. We'll grow more food so we would fill all Guyanese.
My greatest desire is to serve my country, Guyana, and sincerely help my Guyana to move along. Our government asks us that we study hard and we learn the things that will help Guyana to become strong.
Guyana, I want to serve my country. Guyana, beautiful, happy and free. Guyana, let's cooperate with our government to help develop Guyana the free. To help develop Guyana the free.
Yes, welcome back to the BUXTONIAN Morning Time. You see what's on your screen there? Well, I don't know. Well, before I deal with that, let me say to you, let me remind you, well, basically, you know, that by now Joseph Harmon has resigned as leader of the opposition as things are moving ahead in terms of changes, right? So we had Granger removing himself as chairman of the APNU, Harmon himself resigning as secretary, general secretary of the APNU. And so those two positions have been declared vacant. Aubrey Norton, leader of the PNC, is now chairman of the APNU. And in a week's time or in a few days' time, you will now hear who the general secretary of the APNU will be. Likewise, with the resignation of Harmon as leader of the opposition, we are expecting to see some changes in Parliament. Some changes have to happen. And this is how I'm reasoning in it. Somebody will have to be removed from Parliament so that Aubrey Norton becomes a parliamentarian. And my reasoning is that that person will have to be a PNC person. Right? I'm thinking the person has to be a PNC person because it's a PNC person who will replace that person. So somebody from the PNC list of parliamentarians there. So the AFC is in good hands. They don't have to be worried. Right? The PNC, some PNC rep will have to be removed, and so Norton can go into Parliament. And then they will have that nomination and vote to make him leader of the opposition, assuming that the aim is still to make him leader of the opposition. I'm saying assuming, because the possibility is, right? they might have some internal arrangements for him not to be leader of the opposition for tactical reasons. But assuming he wants to be the leader of the opposition, then after the PNC person is removed and he becomes a parliamentarian, then they will have that vote. Now, people are saying a lot of people should be removed. But I have taken note of the fact that Gita Chandan Edmonds was made General Secretary of the PNC. As if Gita is General Secretary of the PNC, is it possible that he can ask her to remove from Parliament, focus on our General Secretary work, which I would want to assume is paid work, so she might not necessarily be losing income, and so that Aubrey replaces her. I'm just tinkering in my mind. Because if you look at how things went on for the last week or so, Christopher Jones opted for Sherwin Holler. No, not Sherwin. What's the name of that person? Anyhow, Christopher Jones opted to allow the other person, Vince Roy Jordan. Yes, I think Vince Roy Jordan. Christopher Jones opted for Vince Roy Jordan. I hope I'm not naming the wrong person. Vince Roy Jordan to be vice chair of the party while he remains in Parliament as chief whip. So I don't think Christopher Jones is going to be losing that chief whip position anytime soon, because I think what I want to say, some horse trading must have taken place there. Okay, bro, I'm already the chief whip. I'm getting paid from Parliament, etc. And so, no stress with you being the vice chairman. Take your due recognition because we tied for this position. And so I think that kind of reasoning is happening and negotiation is happening in the PNC right now. And so the possibility is we might see Gita exiting Parliament so that Norton can enter and become leader of the opposition. I'm just thinking. Right? You know me. I'm just thinking. I claim to have analytical skill. I don't know if that is what will happen, but let's look and see what will happen. Right? And let me remind you. I put up this post here, and Jaiwan Bundari say, hey, don't respond. Don't respond. You shouldn't respond. Let me say straight up. I've been advised by a couple of my viewers, people I trust their judgment, I have great respect for their inputs and everything. And they said not to respond to J.R. Crawford. But the first thing I want to say is I don't even know who J.R. Crawford is, or I didn't even know who J.R. Crawford was. Right? I have never really paid attention to J.R. Crawford. All I've been hearing is how this Crawford man has gone Mark Benchcap, shown cuss up and gone arrogant. People like to say ignorant. Right? I never really pay attention to J.R. Crawford. Who is this chap? I know of Ryan effing Crawford, because there was a video there with Ryan effing Crawford cussing up the police and so on, and he came to national attention. But I never really knew who JR was or is. I have never addressed any issue to do with J.R. Crawford. You people know that every morning we have a program, a Crawford calls in, but that is Frankie, the man they used to call Zacchaeus. Right? Deportee Frankie. Right? But I never addressed JR. So JR is here telling people that I must tell people about my time at Sarah. Well, JR, again, you're proving to be ignorant. There's nothing to tell about me at Sarah. I never worked at Sarah. Never worked at Sarah. He adds, by the way, I've got enough land already. And I don't live off people sending money. Sometimes you have to take time out to address some issues so that some people get further educated. Never worked at Sarah. When I come here in the mornings, and this is something I addressed before and I heard it again, and I'm addressing it again. When I come here in the mornings, I provide a service. Spell it in capital letters, S-E-R-V-I-C-E, service. Call it a news service, call it political analysis, call it what you want. I am providing a service. The kind of information and the kind of programming that we bring on this platform, many people have to subscribe for. They subscribe to BBC World, they subscribe to New York Times, they subscribe to all kinds of newspapers and news agents around the world and so on. They pay a subscription. And so if people are sending contributions to keep this program active because it is of service to them, I have no shame. And there should be no shame in that. Right? I'm not on the street corner begging a soul for something. And so don't think you're shaming me. Or you can shame me by propagating that I live off of people sending money. I'm almost 50 years old. And I've been living as an adult and living comfortably before I started this program. And I will continue to live comfortably even if I choose to end this program. Because there's life after this program. There was life before and there's life after. And for those of you who believe that this program is a sole source of income for me, or even income for me, quite frankly, you're very well mistaken. The other morning, someone called to thank me for that humanitarian effort. None of you know what it is. But I can say these contributions helped me to do just that. There are many times that I say, I am going to distribute hampers. I don't plaster people on social media to put their poverty on show. I assist and I assist quietly. So let's clarify this. Let's clear the air. And the enough land you're talking about. The enough land you're talking about, J.R. Crawford. You did not work a day to earn an inch of it. It is land which was coveted from your relatives by your father and handed down to you. I will open up the lines, don't call yet. Let me handle J.R. Crawford. Your father, Marcel Crawford, was a liar. For all his adult life, he lived in an inherited property which has now been handed down to y'all. Y'all hear me? Everybody's hearing about J.R. Crawford and his arrogance and ignorance. But nobody apparently knows J.R. Crawford. So let me put him out there for you. He wants some attention. Let me give him attention. Let me give him attention. The land you currently boast of and the house you live in is a property that your father fought your uncle for. And Frankie got live in Diamond. Because you have fight your father and win the property for whatever reason. You talking about land? My grandparents had, my grandmother in particular, had what, 4 or 6 children. I never count right now. But they inherited at least 36 parcels of land in Buxton Friendship from their aunt. You understand that? 36 parcels of land for 6 children. Each of them naturally were entitled to 6 parcels of land, which also had backlands with them. Double it, you get 12 parcels. Land you talking about? Land? My family knows about land. And let me tell you something. Before age 30, I was the owner of property. And not inherited property. Property that I worked and bought. So don't talk about land and who's sitting back and wait for people send work for live off of. I don't live off of what people send. It helps me to do this which I'm doing, which is a public service. It helps me to help the lesser fortunate. When I have to jump into my car and drive, for example, to BUXTONIAN to help out somebody there, does the car run on water? What I'm taking to them, does it fall from the sky? You think I worked at Sarah? I didn't work at Sarah, Joe, sir. I will tell you where I work. Because I work there, because I'm duly qualified. I'm a University of Guyana graduate. I graduated among the best in my class. I don't even pay attention to those things. Otherwise, I could have told you what the GPA was. But I know it's very high. Unlike you, JR, it is alleged that you have to be sent out of this country because of statutory rape. And you were sent to study law in the US. You're not a lawyer. You flunked out. You switched to medicine. You flunked out. In the words of your family member, your father said you're there in the US doing a smoke dope. You were disavowed. Your father said not another cent of his money. Your mother, who was a Habibullah, had to be maintaining you in the US. Imagine sending money from Guyana to maintain you in the US when you should have been studying. Instead of studying, you beat up your body how many times? He is no liar. So you can go to him to sue me when I finish with you. JR, you are a nobody. All you're doing is seeking attention. And once I'm done addressing you, you wouldn't get any more of my attention. Because you really and truly don't worth our time. Stop going around as if you're important. You're what I refer to as a political prostitute. You started with the AFC because it looks as though there was an opportunity there. You jumped to the AP and you're in the PNC because it looked like there was an opportunity there. You're extremely critical of Aubrey Norton because he has put a spoke in your wheel. These are the things that people should know about you. Don't come for me, chap. I'm from Buxton background side. I could lift up my petticoat like you. And I don't have to use expletives. Don't come for me. I am in my corner doing my civic duty. It might help you to do your civic duty and leave me alone. The people who choose to send their monies to KAMSTV, know that they're sending it for a worthwhile cause. What is your cause? What is your cause, JR? You're an attention seeker. Things that don't even concern you, you're left in and rush into. You run guy to the Harbor Bridge, you guys look for Watts or whoever. Nonsense. You ever see me flouncing around the place for attention? Once I'm done with this life in the day, I deal with people and their issues quietly behind the scene. This is almost a full-time job for me. There are times when I have to leave my income generating stuff and deal with helping people and their issues. Because that is what I know. Service to the people. I've been doing this since I'm a teen. And I am not a political prostitute. Since I became active in politics, since I became a political activist, I've been with the Working People's Alliance. I know loyalty. I don't jump around looking for opportunities. I create my opportunities. Me and the handout kind of person. Me and born with a gold spoon in my mouth. Whether it was coveted by my parents or my grandparents to hand to me or not. You that kind of person. So don't come telling me you got land. I don't concern if you got land. You should take it up with your relatives who feel cheated from that land. I work every day. This is part of my work. Don't come for me, star. Burnt out star, I meant. Don't come for me. Let me use my time and do what I'm doing. Give service. Have a good day, JR. You can go back in the trench with the trenchies. Okay? Have a good day. I'm about to up my line, but you know what? I won't be satisfied unless I dedicate. I just got all my tunes, you know. Every day got a hint. And I just got to use my tunes to complete my messages. Lil Rick.
We don't care if them like me. We say hey, 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 hey. We don't care if them like me. We live in a world where haters be full of bad mind and enemy. For sure, that can't bother me. I don't give a damn if you don't like me. I like myself. Drink the drink. I like myself. I like myself. Eat the food. Inside the bed, drinking rum. Now get stupid and tumble down. Sweet little lady want some fun. I don't want sex without a condom. I like myself. Real bad. I like myself. I like myself. Hey, so I eating best, I drinking best, I stepping out fresh, but the carnival and everything blessed. The girls them best. It is bacana. See me walking up buttless by the street. Don't mind me, mind yourself. Don't
I like myself. I love what I do. I serve people. Don't let it come. Don't let it send you. Right? I could go into the gutter like all the trench crappos and jagabats. So don't think I sit here in the morning and I do what I do because I have nothing else to do. And I don't respond to people because I'm afraid of responding and I can't respond appropriately. I can't. I don't always choose to go where the trenches go. The lines are open. 6225933 is the number to call. Let's talk about what's in budget 2022 for you. Frankie, morning. I know Frankie. Yeah. Hola, doy. 6225933 is the number to call. Let's talk the thing. I just be in the kind of good. You know? People that just come and want mash me too. Well, hey, don't mash me too. Don't mash me too. I'm going to spend time researching you. Call it live, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Amsterdam. You're right to destroy that particular I don't know what to call it. I used to be on Mark show, and I could remember when this man with Mr. Ben had the created problem at his ministry, and when they were removing him. This same man, J.R. Crawford, was saying on Mark show that you got a lot of Guyanese who doing well in Guyana. He was talking about some big doctor. And these people must come back home to make Guyana great. So I turned and I said, man, you had it done good. Because look at people who come back home and look at the treatment. Who ain't getting robbed, getting treated like what they do to Mr. Ben. And because I said that on Mark's show, Mark blocked me. All what I could do on his show was to share his show. And you know me, I stopped viewing Mark's show. Because this man, J.R. Crawford, is a prominent feature on Mark Benchcup's show. And if this is what he gonna get on with you, because of what his brother would do, calling and be disrespectful. If I don't look at him like Oguan at Mark, I stop viewing it. And if you don't like what is going on a particular show, all you got to do is don't view the show. Now with this budget that was passed there yesterday, when you look at the things that the government has put in first place, you right to talk about health. Health should have been the highest fraction of the budget, followed by education. Now and then you got the salaries of people. Salaries again has not been increased. They barely give $3,000 to the pensioners who they promised 4 years back $40,000. To the NIS pensioners, I'm an NIS pensioners. Not 1 cent has been given to us. So I don't know how we are going to make out when everything keeps rising. And this country, this government here, they are looking to enrich themselves more. But they talk about improvement in the military. That is to arm themselves to the teeth to destroy protesters if we decide to go and protest. So they mean they're going to kill protesters and they will do what they want to do. Last but not least, now that the PNC is straightening out and clearing out the closet and doing what they were supposed to do, I hope that Mr. Norton now, in the position that he is, can now focus on the attention of the petition, because we need this petition to come to fruition. And I say again, the law, who got to deal with it, the lawyers and so, they have enough time to sit and come up with a strategy. Now when the CCJ send back the petition here, they're now studying for fixed case jacket and know everything. By the time the petition come back, APNU lawyers, opposition lawyers, be on the ball that the petition could be heard the same day. Do like what the PPP did when was the election. If a thing come out today, the PNC, the PPP make certain, they said this in the morning, afternoon it going to court. Sunday was a court day. Saturday was a court day. And Mr. Norton got to be the same thing in the PPP, and they need the PPP. Not got too close to this thing, you know, but it got to be close up to them with this petition, because this is the only thing that we could hold on to. Because what we're going through now is definitely they're going to take all who they could catch and sell out the body parts. Last on the body parts, they claim that you will be given an opportunity to say, take this in. Now, if me, now I live in, and I gonna sign a paper for you to take out me heart to give to somebody, when you go to the hospital now, you have got to make up your mind. And the time you just got to go do surgery, you know when they pronounce you dead because they take out your heart, they will tell you it's because I go in this person to do an appendectomy or repair a hernia and the body had gone. What you going to tell the people them? So the law, people got to stand up for it. Last, a lady went to a private hospital and she said she delivered a baby. When she was finished, they gave her 3 injections. And when she was finished, she realized that she cannot walk. To the lady, if anybody is listening, I would advise her to go back and see if she could, excuse me, be given treatment at the physiotherapy department. There is extensive exercises, and that may be able to assist her to regain functions in her foot. And I don't want them to sue me, but I believe that the lady's sciatic nerve has been touched by the needle. And if that it is, lady, I'm sorry for you, but still try to go and see if you could get physiotherapy treatment. And with that, she got to do a lot of exercising, with your family, see what you could do to regain strength in that leg. It's not easy to, from this early age, with a young baby, not even 5 months, and you are ambulant, walking around, moving around, and you reduce to the thing that you cannot move. I'm so sorry for her. That is my comment.
Thank you, Wanda. Voice note.
Good morning, Kadaki. Why you wasting time with this J.R. Crawford? But this J.R. Crawford, he's a clown. He's there on Mark Bench Cup program.
Lights are open.
Commenting nonsense. Why you wasting time on this J. Crawford? You got better things to do. J. Crawford upset because you get all the land. Don't waste time with J. Crawford. J. Crawford is a clown. You keep doing your thing.
Lines are open 62593. Choose a number to call.
Crawford is a cross. J.R. Crawford is a parasite. He has nothing good to say. He has nothing good to say.
Voice note.
Morning, my brother Kadaki. Listening to Frank talking about this bill, but organ harvesting and all these things. But this man don't even have an idea, a little idea, and no knowledge about COVID. When he had Delta, he don't know if Delta, he don't know if Omicron here. This organ bill where they want to pass is far more sophisticated. He can't even control. Look, they can't even set a good task force to do the job to control COVID. Instead of spending all the money for going to do things like that, put more testing sites, more places that people could go and get free testing for COVID and all these things. Handle the situation we got at hand right now. Organ donation, all them things in needed right now. Yeah, you get organ and then you get COVID. What happened? You get body tissue and then you get COVID. What happened? Fix the problem that's going on now. The man have no clue what's going on. You understand? Yeah. You know when the bill pass, what happened? Full human trafficking, the thing will start happening again. Guyanese people, wake up. Wake up.
Somebody is saying they don't think that the Crawford who caused the program and J.R. Crawford are the same persons. No, they are not the same persons. The Crawford who calls me every morning, even off of the program, is Frankie, Zacchaeus. Right? Frankie and I have, you guys will hear him leaving voice notes and all kind of thing this every morning, tit for tat, basically on the program. So I don't know where GR come out from. Right? Where there's nonsense. Voice, I played this voice. No, this one was just played. So like the callers are dumb. Nobody is calling. What's wrong with y'all this morning? Y'all get blocked over. I don't block people. That is another operator. Leon, suddenly let me assure you, this program is here to stay. Regardless of who is in government, this program is here to stay. Because this program serves the will of the people. This is the people's parliament. People get to express their dissatisfactions here. And I get to highlight shortcomings of the government here. So don't worry yourself, Leon Saddle. I'll be here, watching and waiting. Right? Watching and waiting. Every now and again, I'm going to get tickled, so I'm going to have abuse. But I am me. What you see is what you get. Calling live, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Oh, very well, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the call. I always listen to your program, but I never taken my time to call you. But I'm so upset this morning that our brothers do not have the upcoming to know what to say and what not to say. That guy that named Crawford, he is all over on all of these programs talking a bunch of garbage. We do not waste time with these people. For an example, when they are donating money to the PPP party, they do not say nothing, or they do not bring their brothers down. So what if we're taking a change from us that living in North America here and sending it to a brother to keep his program running because he's educating a society that the media block out on anything to do with the opposition? They do not talk about it. You are doing a service for the people of Guyana and the APNU people. The people love you, just as how I love you. You need to keep doing your work and don't listen to idiots like this. No matter what it is, you do not waste your time and your energy with these people. You understand? That's how the people could have come up with all of this money to rig the election, to pay all of these hundreds of millions of dollars that went they get money from all of these trench crapper in New York and all of these people in Canada where I live. They send their money to the PPP to Jagdio, and that's how they come up with this money to rig the election. Okay? So J.R. Crawford, I'm telling you, brother, you are a dunce. You should not come on this program like a whore, basically. Talking a bunch of garbage. People doesn't listen to you. You need attention, but no one is going to do that. So thank you so much, my brother, for taking my call this morning, and continue doing the good work.
Thank you very much. Last remain of 6259 is the number to call. Colonel, let's talk the thing. And quite frankly, Crawford was the least of the thing that we should be talking about. Right? So, I don't know. I just had to address that quickly and move on. And I certainly have moved on. Let's talk about budget 2022. What's in it for us? Right? What can we expect? What are the shifts we're going to be expecting what are the shifts we should be expecting in the National Assembly? And how is that going to affect the movement forward in terms of dealing with this government and their policies or lack of policies? Right? The money for roads and infrastructure, a whole ton of it is going to be spent to the east, Region 6. The people in Region 4 RDC, your representatives at Region 4 RDC, were given no opportunity to contribute to the development of the budget. None. All of the people's representatives at the Region 4 RDC were shut out of the process. The REO put what he needed to put and submitted it. And fight high and low, Chairman Siram and others could not get it changed. That's the kind of democracy that we're talking about in this country. Call Live, good morning. Call Live, good morning.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, Kidaki, and good morning to the listeners. Yes, I want to disagree with you with one thing, with the budget situation. You said that no thought was put into it. But I think a lot of thought was put into the budget, but to satisfy who or whom?
I agree.
The thought was put into it to satisfy the government and their cronies, the installed government and the cronies, and not the general public. So on that ground, I disagree with the thought.
I agree with you.
Thought it out well. How to rob us, right? So the next thing is with Harman situation. I think the people would have liked him and Mr. Granger because when they were in government, they were put on a pedestal. So I think the people would have liked them still if after the elections were given to the PPP, they were there to console us. But instead they went into hibernation, they were moulting or something. So they disappeared and left the people, us, to suffer, to cry amongst ourselves without no support from them. Harman actually came back on the scene when it was Congress approaching. And he probably realized that he was in a bad place, and then he started showing his face. But he still did not go to any of the, where they were asked, one of the top shows, your show or Dr. Hines' show or so. He didn't go to none to speak to us. He kept ducking. So I think that's the main reason why Mr. Granger and him are in the position they are in now. Because even now, Mr. Granger goes on a program that I don't listen to and speaking to other stuff. At no stage has he spoken to what happened at elections. So where is his loyalty? One will have to ask. Where is his loyalty? I think the Abdul FC need to strengthen their game. And hopefully, with Mr. Norton coming on board and being the leader, that might happen. We're hoping that it happens. For example, one of the things that was missing during the APA and AFC government was the information. I mean, I'm sorry that, what's his name, died. Imran. But I used to marvel because Imran used to give a press conference once every 3-4 months, and they were in government, whereas Jack Dio and Nandalala them used to give a press conference almost every day. They were saying something in the news. So they need to up their game if they want to regain power and to stay in. There's a lot of work to be done. Condemning the PPP is okay because I think they're racist, but at the same time, the PPP are playing politics while AP and UFC were playing Dolly House. Because they went into power and did not cleanse the people. So the PPP were in the know in everything because they kept almost everybody in place from the previous government. So the PPP were in the know in almost everything, so they were able to do what they did to them, destabilize them in every area. The PPP are playing politics, and they did what they. I could envisage what they will do. They did the cleaning out and all of that, and close to elections, they're going to try to pull wool over your eyes, so to speak, by giving people something when it gets close to elections, because our people remember the last thing that is done. And so that's what I think their plan is.
Thank you, Colin.
So, okay, and you need to be on the game, up the game.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Have a great day. Yeah.
Same to you. Voice note.
Yeah.
Mr. Kadaki, good morning.
This voice note is very low. Let me remind you, callers, please, when you're doing a voice note, you gotta stop going on as if you're cheating. You know, your husband in the next room, you're whispering to the outside. You know, stop doing that. You have to speak loudly into your phone. Otherwise, we are not going to hear the voice note. Please redo this one. We want to hear your thoughts.
Good morning, Brother Kadaki. Adding to what Rhonda is saying about the body parts, these things are so true. The government, the Minister of Health is talking and pressing for these organs to be taken out or be sold or what have you. That is true facts that when they take out these organs unknowingly to patients, they sell these organs. These are organs that they take out and sell for big money. It happens a lot in the developing countries. In Europe, people from America pays a lot of money to go to Europe for organ which is taken out. In India, they sell organs all the time to finance their family, their households. So this, as much as it might be saving a life, if your own can't be saved, but with the kind of government we having, the dishonesty, that the only money counts for them, it is a serious decision to make. And I hope the opposition look into this very, very carefully. When it comes to the budgets, they don't want the civil servants or the public servants to move further than from where they are. These infrastructures they are putting up, the houses they are putting up, you will go and live in it as skeletons. How long will you survive in these structures you're going in if you don't have the money to feed the body, to keep it strong enough to enjoy the structures that you're going to buy? They are not giving you these houses free, nor the house lots free. How you getting the money to pay for the house lots? You got to borrow it. Whatever little savings you have, you take out there. You can't nourish your body. You fall down sick. You become a skeleton. It is really disheartening. I want to know if all of these ministers in parliament, in the government, do they have a heart? What don't they think? I wonder if they don't have poor families. But because they might be having all of this money, they might be helping their poor families. But what happened to other poor families who have nobody to help them? God, I wish some mornings that when these big guys wake up, that they can't move from their beds. Sorry to say it, but they can't move from their beds and let this money that they want to surround themselves with lift them up. You people out there, please listen to sensible talking. Brother Kadaki, Dr. Hines, and all these guys, they are giving you facts. You young people who seems to don't care. I can't leave my little work on the roadside or what. I can't make the sacrifice to do that. But then when they face it, you hold your head and cry. Please, neighbors, you see, every morning I'm posting good morning, good neighbor, good morning, and hugs. Because black people care about people. They care about their own, they care about who aren't their own. You all have a blessed day. Keep focused and listen and think wisely.
Call A Live, good morning. Thank you for that voice note.
Good morning to Jackie and good morning to everybody that's listening. My take is, I would like to speak concerning the nurses at the PAMS that did not get the 2-week bonus. I think the PAMS institution is the largest elderly care facility for the government. And I'm asking our Honorable Minister, Mr. Vidya Prasad, see to it that the nurses get that money. They work with the COVID patients. They're sick and they go to work. I think they should get the money. Budget is reading now. Let us see that your staff get the money. And I'm asking the President of the country, please look into it. Please look into it that the nurses at the PAMS get the 2-week bonus. And for the pensioners, I think that $3,000 is an insult. Because if you check that $3,000, they get a $3,000 for 2 years. And $1,500 per year, that's an insult to the senior citizens. I think they could have done better than that. And that $10,000 on the threshold, that is no money for the cost of living in the country. The cost of living is very high. People have rent to pay, they have bills to pay, and I think they should do better for healthcare workers. I think in this budget, it would have some sort of money for healthcare workers. I hear nothing absolutely for healthcare workers, and I think the government should step up their pace because all the rest of countries are looking into the healthcare workers. It's a pandemic. Since the 11th of March 2020, the healthcare workers working in the pandemic. Look how many nurses and doctors lose their demise. They have relatives because they carry COVID and give it to the relatives and they die. And nothing, you never get enough thanks. And Kadaki, it is unfair. It is really, really unfair. And people are getting frustrated. And I think the government should do better. The minister should do better. I know they are airing because they doesn't listen to your show. They should do better and help the healthcare professionals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nicola mentioned Vinaya Prasad, Dr. Vinaya Prasad. Just as a minister, I've not addressed since August to now. But I've been getting some terrible reports about her. I used to say she's quite a likable person. She's easygoing and so on. But they say you have to come live with me to see where the house leaking. Right? Come live with me and come see me is two different things. I understand she is very, very nasty to some people. Maybe we have to do a program to talk about her. Connie Live, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Amsterdam. Yeah, people have to realize that this budget, we should not have been looking forward for anything. We know how the people are. We know who them is. Why we keep looking forward? What people have to do, wake up and open their eyes. Wake up and open their eyes. Right? And be motivated the next election. Right? Leaders, the APNU leaders and the PNC leaders have to start motivating people to go out and make a change. We would never get anything out of the PPP.
Thank you for that call. Yes, I've received several complaints from people I know and trust in the social services sector. And the reports on Vinaya, they are not nice at all. Last I spoke with someone who served this country for about 20 years. Ricardo Singh, I ain't got no roosters, man. And quit out of frustration because of the treatment from Vinaya Prasad. Connie Live, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Gaddafi. What people have to understand is very simple. We are at this junction, and I know a lot of people might disagree with me, but we are at this junction because some of us let it happen since the 2020 elections. A lot of people take a lot of stuff for granted with the PPP. A lot of people take stuff for granted, and now they're getting repaid. Now, like I keep telling other folks, this budget was not set up for the ordinary man. This budget has a lot of flaws. This budget was made to benefit the richer people, not for the average man. There is nothing in there for the average man. This budget is to benefit the richer people that already have stuff. But you see, a lot of people were sleeping during election time. A lot of people took a lot of things for granted. So it's not that we don't know the PPP history, but a lot of people thought that they want to change. Now what I'm saying is that the PPP will never change. The track record is there. They have damaged this country for the past 23 years, and now they're in power. They probably is going to do it more longer. So a lot of people take a lot of stuff for granted in the last elections, and that is the junction where we at. A lot of suffering has to take place. That's why you get a lot of drug smuggling, human trafficking, guns coming from Ghana and other parts of the world. And that is affecting the country and society. Because the bigger ones don't care about the average man. They only care about themselves. And it's time we wake up and understand that. And some of us are not getting the picture. The PPP don't care, and they're plunging the country into poverty and other things. For instance, if you graduate from university with a degree, you can't even you left in secondary school with so many subjects. You can't even find proper work. There's no system in place for the poor man. And that's just the fact. Some persons mightn't like it, but that's the fact. Guyana in the 21st century is way behind. The government is wasting time. They only care about themselves. And under this regime, they would never have a system in place to benefit the average man. So, if people don't understand that, then I'm sorry. Guyana is headed nowhere. When you check the developing countries, even the Caribbean countries like Barbados, St. Vincent, which depend on tourism, we got all this gold and wealth, and the country going nowhere. You're not seeing the benefit of the wealth distributed between the poor people. It all goes in the politicians' pockets, and they are benefiting. So it's not going to change. It's just more suffering. It's going to keep coming. The people of Guyana.
Thank you, caller.
So that is my contribution this morning. You have a good morning.
You too. Call it live. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Kadaki. Good morning, all the viewers who are listening. One thing I say, the caller that talked just now, he talked about because same thing he was saying that a lot of people think the PVP election time was granted for true, but it's showing them old colors that they had before. You see? So he make a good point. So black people gotta learn and listen and watch what's going on, but you're tired talking to them, but nobody ain't doing nothing, everybody just there. But according to what he's seen, the PVP leading Guyana in a revolution state. Is that what we're going to? You see? And a lot of people have to open their eyes and watch what's going on with Orman and them too with Mr. Thing at the election time. I never Mr. Ranger come out and talk, say what happened, and he talk nothing about that. But Scarlett and the people, yeah, another program too, just talking stuff. I don't watch him. I don't watch him at all. You see? So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, caller. Vice note.
Lucky, good morning. Good morning to all your listeners. It's by GR. I used to live in the country and I know GR. In the days of going to school, GR and them boys is them type who used to hide from school. Got problem with teachers. Parents gotta go to school fee and all kind of thing. Now if you know that he becomes a liar, it's questionable. Because he didn't even have the background teaching. He wasn't a scholar, you know, for attain this thing. So now when you attain it, it's questionable. So his behavior reflects who he really is. And that's the whole truth about it. So he's not nobody to pay attention to because, as I said, he came up as, you know, countryside, you say like a little down there. And then now he's a liar, or a proclaimed liar. But it's questionable. That's all.
Thank you, Vice Noter. Let me clarify here. JR is no lawyer. JR is no doctor. Ryan Crawford is a lawyer. Right? And that is why you have to take time to deal with these issues because people mix up people. A lot of people believe JR is Ryan. Ryan is not JR. Ryan is a lawyer. Ryan F. Crawford is a lawyer. JR is the eldest of the children. You know, every family got a black sheep. Call A Live, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Kadaki.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, sir. Listen, I have been following what has been happening. Huh? Okay. Right now?
Caller, you're in the program or you're in your living room?
No, I'm calling you. I thought that I was off.
No, you have to speak to me. Stop listening for the program. Just speak to me.
Okay, I will. And now I've been following what the PPP has been for some time now. And I think the only thing that the PPP is afraid of is the petition. And they are doing things to distract persons from that. Even the budget they're using to do as a distraction. And I think it's time that the opposition focus a little bit more on that petition. bearing in mind what they're doing to the country where the budget is concerned, what they're doing to the country where the fund is concerned, the earth fund is concerned. All those things I feel is a distraction. They're not afraid to put their plans in place. That is what they've been doing all along. But the one thing they seem not to be able to control is the petition. So I think we should focus a little bit more on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The second or third time for the morning the petition has been raised, and it has been slipping me all the time to address it. Let me say this to you. Let me remind you that the appeal court ruled on one of the petition and said that they can hear it. Anil Nandlal applied for leave. First, he applied to the CCJ for a stay. That stay was granted when it expired. I think he applied for an extension of the stay. And then recently it was announced that the appeal court actually granted him leave to appeal the matter before the CCJ. It is now at the CCJ. I understand if he has not yet applied to the CCJ for time to prepare his pleadings, right? I think he applied for 2 weeks to prepare pleadings if I remember clearly what has been happening. And so what Anil has successfully done is move the petition out of the realm of the Guyanese court for now, drop it at the CCJ, and is using all the delaying tactics to ensure that it stays there for the longest while before it even gets the opportunity to come back here to be heard if the CCJ rules that the appeal court is correct in their ruling. Because we know what we've seen from the CCJ in the past. And I usually tell you as it is, I'm not holding my breath. I quite frankly would be pleasantly surprised if the CCJ says that the appeal court is correct in its judgment. Because remember, it was a 2-1 decision. Rishi Prasad or whatever the judges went against the ruling of the 2 female judges on the appeal court there. Right? So petition, I can't remember if that's 88 or 99, is right now sitting at the CCJ awaiting an appeal by Nandlal. That for me can take quite a while. You see, and ever so often you have to compare government and government styles. Because when the APNU was in office, everything that had to do with the election was put on an expedited list. Everything, no other case in the courts mattered. Once it had to do with election, it was brought right up and dealt with. But now, the PPP is in office. And everything is moving at a snail's pace. It suggests to me, and it is something which I think we know, that the APNU was playing, as people like to say, Sunday school politics. And they were having this hands-off situation, this strict separation of powers. They were not interfering with the operation of the courts and so on. Not the PPP. The PPP is going to do all that it can humanly do to delay the hearing of the petition. By the time you catch yourself, 5 years might be over and the petition still not heard. Call it alive, good morning.
Week. But I know you had to get that point out there. I just want to make 2 points this morning. One is that judging from everything that went down in this budget, I am not seeing anything for the ordinary Guyanese, especially the school children. One would have expected that during this COVID season, at least education minister would have had something for the children, some program, some internet free program, maybe buy some computers, some tablets and give them so that those that cannot be at school would be able to do online learning. Even to the home testing kits, they could have invested in some and give it out to the parents and teachers so that they can do the tests at home you know, if they kind of showing symptoms. My second point is I know Guyanese far and wide, they're rejoicing because Mr. Norton is getting there to be the opposition leader. But I want to encourage Guyanese that Mr. Norton is only but one man. He cannot do it by himself. So we the people, in order for him to succeed and Guyana at large, we have to fight along with him. Don't just depend on Mr. Norton wholeheartedly. I mean, he might be the general of the army, but generals does not win battles. The army does. So the struggle continues, and let us continue fighting. We will get there. God bless you as always, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, caller. It is now 5 minutes past, 3 minutes that is. It is now 3 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour, and of course it's program time. Thank you for tuning in. I do hope you remain vigilant. I do hope that you continue to pay attention to what's happening. Protect yourself at all times. COVID is real. Infections are on the rise. Cost of living is on the rise. And so what I want to encourage you is to try and cut out all the unnecessaries in your budget. Shop only when it's necessary. Shop what is absolutely necessary. Because like they say, the fat guy says that Guyanese are going to get more disposable income in this budget. I don't know if you've seen it, but I guess we have to get a special kind of magnifying glass to identify it. And so in the meantime, just recognize that the reality is that this is not a people's budget. This is a friends and cronies budget, big business budget, and so you have to act accordingly. I'll take this last call. Caller, be swift about it. Good morning.
Morning, Kadaki. Great program. My thing is, why the hell we keep asking or pleading with the damn friggin' PPP to do this and do that? When we already know they're a bunch of crooks, the mafia style. So stop begging them to do what they can do or what they will not do. I mean, stop it, people. Get your ass out there and protest, you know, and stop begging them to have a heart. They do not have a heart, and that's it.
Thank you, caller. That's a wrap. Have a great day.